what's up guys? Welcome back. So today I'm going to be doing a video. I already shot the whole video and I'm going to explain to you right now what's going to happen in the video. It's kind of a lot of, it might be a little long, a little bit of explanation, but I'm going to go through the transmission in the truck. As you guys know, if you've been watching, if you haven't, subscribe and watch. I did go to the track with the truck and kind of messed up the transmission. It lost all the gears and I thought it was a low fluid pressure issue, but for me to make a decision on whether to just buy a new transmission and throw it in there or figure out what's wrong with the tune, or if it's a tune issue at all, which I don't think it is, I need to understand what the cause was before I can make a decision. So I've spent a lot of time over the last few days analyzing different things, trying to figure out what was happening, going through the tune, talking to other people, going through the transmission, and that's what I'm doing in this video. Pulled the valve body off, did a bunch of stuff, did some research on like the HD2 kit, and there's sometimes an issue with the pressure relief valve. A lot of people have really good luck with it, so take that for a grain of salt. But I did plug that in the video. I did go through the valve body and look at some of the valves, some stuff that was happening there. I checked the gasket. I turned up the pressure on the EPC solenoid, adjusted some things in the tune, and put it all back in the truck and go for a drive. And then I'm gonna go, after the drive, through some scans with you guys, because some of you guys like the scans, some of you guys don't, but I'm gonna go through some of the logs, some of the scans, the tune before and after, and I'm gonna go all the way back to last year. So I looked at some of the scans from this year, and I also compared some of the logs and scans this year compared to last year to look at what the transmission was doing, what the RPM drop looked like, what the converter slip looked like, and trying to compare what was happening to identify what my issue is. So that's a lot of explanation for what the video is going to be. So enjoy it. All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Got the 821 Bravo Break It Till You Make It shirt on today in the spirit of the broken truck. So I feel like making a video of the times that I said I was going to go 11.0 and break it before I went 10s. So I might do that, I don't know, kind of funny, but we're working on the truck. I definitely did go 11.0, and I've said that in multiple videos, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen that or remember it, or I've talked to you about it, and that was what I kept saying was, with my luck, I'm going to go 11.0 and break it, and I went 11.01, and I broke it. So I can barely drive the truck now. I've been driving it to and from work a couple days. It's okay as long as I'm light on the throttle, it doesn't slip, but do have the transmission pan off, and I'm about to take the valve body off, and I'm just checking this membrane switch now, and I'm kind of just looking for anything that's out of the ordinary. What I'm going to be looking for is like the solenoids. I'm going to check the solenoids, I'm going to check the valve body, I'm going to try to check some of the valves. I want to check the membrane switch, make sure that's all okay, the pressure control switch, and then when I drop the valve body, I want to look at the valve body gasket and see if there's any circuits that are blown through or just anything weird that I can get to from the bottom side before I pull the transmission completely out of it. So I did find one locally that's for 300 bucks, 120,000 miles, and it's already four-wheel drive. So it's a less desirable engine. It's a less desirable transmission because it's four-wheel drive. So I'm probably going to pick that one up and then just toss it in here unopened. I might do a shift kit on it, the HD2 kit again, but we'll see. Let's get started troubleshooting this thing. Where I'm at right now is I don't want to spend a whole lot of time troubleshooting and putzing around with this transmission. So I don't want to do a full rebuild. I don't want to do a whole lot. I was even talking to a transmission builder today, but I don't think I'm going to do that. It's just not really what I'm interested in. So my thought is get that other one, 120,000 miles, put it in here, make sure everything works, and then maybe do a shift kit later or do the shift kit before I put it in. It'd be like $300-400 bucks with the shift kit, and then I'd have a good working vehicle again and not have to worry about it. So what I'm interested in now is not spending a whole lot of time doing this, and then I can focus on the other vehicles. That's the plan. I'm gonna stop talking. Let's do some work. So what I have here is the membrane switch. This was on the bottom of the valve body, and basically this is just a bunch of electric switches that when the fluid pressure pushes on it, after you adjust the shifter lever and the manual valve, fluid pressure pushes on this and it activates the switches for the computer, which control the solenoids. So essentially what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the continuity buzzer on, the multimeter, and then I'm just going to put the leads across the switch and then push on the switch to see if it beeps. Make sure that all of these little membrane pads are okay. None of them are torn, but I want to make sure the circuit is still working properly. So they all seem to be good. So that's one piece of the puzzle verified. And I guess the point of this whole exercise is just to try to see if there's anything painfully obvious that I can find that might have caused this issue. So I did a lot of passes on the truck last year, this year. It's the same transmission, the same internals. I did convert it to four-wheel drive. I did break the case, and I last year I broke the case after I did the full rebuild, broke the bell housing, and then I put all the same guts in a different case, and this is the same internals, and then I did the four-wheel drive conversion on it, same internals, everything, except the output shaft, of course. So it's been through some things, but I just want to see if there's anything that I can find that might have caused this issue, because it was working very well, and then all of a sudden it just wasn't. So it could have been a stuck valve, could have been, I feel like it might be a fluid pressure issue, because it was commanding the gear. You could see it pulling RPM down, but it wasn't fully engaging the gear, so I feel like it was just fluid pressure, or hell, maybe the clutches just gave up. So just kind of want to see. I know the clutches are toast, but, well, I'm assuming they are because of how bad it slipped, but just want to go through, see if there's anything obvious, and then we'll go from there. I'm also going to plug the relief hole on the pressure relief valve for the Transgo HD2 kit. So doing a lot of reading lately. That's how my mind works. I broke it, so now I want to figure out what happened. And I've also been reading that the Transgo HD2 kit at times can cause some fluid fluctuations or inconsistencies because of that pressure relief valve. So maybe I did something and then the valve caused it to have low pressure. Just going to eliminate that. I'm going to plug that hole, probably tap it and put a bolt in it, and we'll just see what happens. I'm going to welcome you back to my stuff, so bear with me, but I did find some things that I think might be relevant. I don't know if it's the absolute cause of my issue, but it's some things that I noticed that were not correct as I pulled this apart. So this is the valve body. This is the case side of the valve body. So typically you would have this gasket down, a separator plate, and then this gasket, or actually the opposite. This goes down here, the separator plate, and then this goes on top of the separator plate. So one thing that I did find as I was pulling this apart, and I don't know if I did this now or if I did it before when I did the rebuild, and I swapped this stuff all before, but there is a tear in the gasket right here. So the circuit that this is applying is the reverse circuit. It has to do with the reverse. So I'll show you in the book. I'm going to take this off. So see this little opening here? That's basically where the gasket was torn. Now if we match that up to this diagram, 43, if you look at 43, it shows reverse. So this is on this side of the separator plate. That's for the reverse circuit. So there's definitely a tear there. Don't know if I did it now, don't know if I did it before, but we'll find out. If the reverse gets worse when I put it on, then I know kind of when I did it. These valves inside here, this is the manual valve. So when you put the gear selector in gear, this moves back and forth and then changes the fluid flow through the passages. And then that's what goes to your membrane switch, which communicates to the ECU to tell it the shift solenoids what to do. So see how easily this moves back and forth in here? This moves very simply. And then I can look at like the 1, 2 and the 2, 3 shift solenoids. And you can see how easily those move back and forth. Everything moves back and forth really nicely in there. And then you can see up here too. Moves really nice and free. But then this guy right here, this is the torque converter PWM solenoid, like the pulse width modulation solenoid for the torque converter lockup. So this guy, see how it springs back just like the other ones did? Before it didn't do that. So this was like almost completely seized when I got in here. I didn't really show it because I was just digging around, but you can kind of see this little scuff marks on it. It's a little hard to see, but you can see the scuff marks on there, and there was a lot of buildup kind of caked on. So the first time I moved this thing, I actually pushed it over and it got stuck. It just stayed in the same spot. It wouldn't spring back. So then I had to take this out, stick the screwdriver in there, and then jam it in a bunch of times against the spring, because this spring was actually completely seized and like bound up inside there, where it was almost like a loose spring. I thought it was broken for a little while at first, but I was able to get it to loosen up. Oh, and I think I found my piece I was looking for. This is splendid. You guys are seeing this in real time. There is a broken chunk right here. And I thought I found this frickin' guy before, and then I lost it. Yeah. And there we go. And I couldn't tell before if it was actually a broken chunk or what it was. And it's a broken piece. So there's a broken piece sitting inside the valve body. And I don't know where it's from, which is interesting because this is the valve body side of the valve body. It's not on the case side of the separator plate. So I don't know where this chunk came from, but it is definitely a chunk of something floating around in the valve body. I don't even know where that would have came from. But yeah, there's definitely some issues inside here. So yeah, I think that's all that I found so far with broken gasket, ripped gasket on the reverse section, the torque converter, PWM valve and all that stuff. That was seized and not really moving. It was hard to push back and forth. So that might explain why I was having slow apply issues before, especially with the old converter, because this is the same setup. So the old converter, it would apply really slow. It would take like 4 to 6 seconds to fully apply it. So maybe that had something to do with it. But there's also a valve inside here with a return spring, and that return spring is this little guy here. If you look at like 303 through 309, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you look at 5, we have a check ball, third and reverse, which is what we talked about before, third. It's pretty much this same circuit. There's a check ball inside there. Now we have O-ring seal, 3/4 shift valve, and then the 309 is the shift valve return 2, 3, and 3/4. So this is the 2, 3, and 3/4 return spring. So if there's like a fluid issue here, maybe that had something to do with the weird shifting. If it was losing fluid pressure or anything like that. So I think that's pretty much the summary. That's about all I'm going to go through right now. I'll show you another little adventure here. My oldest son decided when I had the bucket sitting right here, it was actually like right up against the tire by the mud flaps. I don't know how he did this, but he was going through here on his bike and tipped the whole thing over. And I had about a gallon of used transmission fluid on the floor. So I don't have any kitty litter because I used it up when I cleaned up the rest of the stuff. So I just told him to start getting me sand from the sandbox. So we just made a little dam out of sand from the sandbox, and kids are kids. They play in this stuff. So I'm gonna clean this up so I can crawl back underneath the truck. But in an emergency, guys, if you don't have kitty litter and you got a sandbox, just do that. So I'm gonna slap this thing back together, put the the gasket, separator plate, everything back on, put the check balls in. I did take a picture of the check ball position because it's easier when the case is upside down and you can put the check balls in the hole. But I did take a picture of where the check balls are resting on the separator plate, just so I can lift it up into the right position and not mess anything up. So like I said before, or like I implied before, I guess, I didn't really say it, but I'm not really expecting to get much out of this transmission because I'm going to be getting a different one for it. So this is just kind of what could I do from the bottom side. We're going to throw it back in, see what it does. One other thing that I'm going to do is, if I'm really motivated, I might pull the boost valve out and just see if the boost valve is moving freely and the spring is okay. That would also cause a loss of pressure or erratic pressure. So, and you can get to that from the bottom side. But one concern I do have with that, why I want to check it, is I pushed up on the boost valve and it stayed stuck in the same spot, like the boost valve sleeve. So I did have an issue one time before with the boost valve getting stuck inside the sleeve. It was like seized inside the sleeve. So I'm gonna pull the thing out, see what it looks like. If it moves freely, then we'll toss it back in. All right, so I got everything back in now. I'm ready to put the pan back on and put the fluid back in. But I wanted to show you guys, instead of the HD2 kit pressure relief valve, I drilled and tapped it for a M8 by 125, and then I put a oil pan bolt in there. So that thing's in there, plugging that hole now. And just another thing I noticed when I was going to put the filter on, this thing is like smashed. So, and if you look at a stock photo of a 4L80 filter, it's flush all the way across, it's flat, and this thing is pinched down almost completely. See that? It's pinched down almost all the way to the bottom plate. So I don't know if like filter got clogged and it sucked the thing shut, or if that's just normal from bolting the pan down. I'm not really sure. Sure, you guys will know, but I don't think that's right because that thing's all pinched down pretty tight. All right, guys, this will be the first start, and I'm going to try to move it. I'll move it forward and try to move it back and see what it does. Put fluid back in it because that's what you do. Alright, so I already did this once and the battery died, so I went in and took a shower and let the battery charge up a little bit. So I'm going to start it, put it in gear, see if I can go forward and backwards. I know what it does because I already did it, so it's less exciting. But I will say there's a significant improvement over what has been happening the last couple days. So before I would kind of hesitate to go into gear. After what happened at the track, it was really slow and sluggish to do anything, especially in reverse. Reverse, it would take 5 to like maybe 8 seconds to engage reverse, to the point where I would put it in reverse and I would sit there and wait and try to rev it up and it wouldn't do anything, and then it would slowly, sluggishly engage and I could get it to move backwards. So watch what happens now. I'm going to put it in drive. I'll come forward, I'll go backwards, and then I'll go forward again, but I'm going to go forward in neutral, and then I'll push it in reverse while I'm pushing forward, moving forward. So let's do it. Let's show it happen. I gotta hook my battery up, guys. Gotta hook it up. So that was that last time when I was rolling forward. I was rolling forward at head and drive, got it to move forward, put it in neutral, and I was coasting forward and put it in reverse. It slams reverse and goes backwards. So that's a significant improvement. So the things that I didn't talk about it earlier, but I did increase, I turned up the adjuster screw on the EPC solenoid. I loosened some sticky valves, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I put the same transmission fluid back in it. So it seems better. I'll take it for a drive and maybe rip on it a little bit tomorrow and see how it responds. Alright guys, so driving around, that didn't really go as I guess it went as exactly how I expected, but not like I had hoped. So I can tell there's still some issues, which I guess to be expected. I mean, I feel like I completely smoked the thing. I'm surprised it's even driving. And then I did some stuff with the valve body, as you saw in the video, and it was actually driving very well today. I took it out on the highway after work and did like a 3-2 power downshift wide open, and it spins the tires and still does all the things that it kind of was doing before. I can still tell it's a little struggling though. Struggling a little, however you want to say it. But I started thinking about it a little bit more, and I guess I'm just trying to figure out where my problem is. And this is kind of where I can get into trouble with myself, because I like to overanalyze everything and look at stuff. So what I've been seriously sitting here for the last almost hour and a half, looking at different scans from this year compared to last year. So, and comparing the dates, because I save almost every time I go to the track, every pass, I save the pass, the date, the number, and like what happened during that pass. So this was 9/21/18. This was like one of the last days I went to the track last year. I know that because of the date, and I was logging converter slip because I was starting to question my converter at the time. So this scan is pretty similar to what I'm scanning today. So this is actually a scan from this year, and you can see all the data is pretty much the same. It's a little bit different, but it's all pretty close. So what I'm comparing, and what I wanted to do was look at the converter, how the converter's reacting, and I really wanted to look at this RPM drop. So a lot of you guys in the comments have been mentioning that the shifting sounds weird on the videos, which I guess if you really listen to it, it does sound a little goofy. But the first person who pointed this out to me was Brooks from DIY Garage TX, the YouTube channel, DIY_Garage_TX. Good channel. Go check him out. He was the first one who pointed this out to me. He sent me a message on Facebook, and he actually had some spots on my scan circled. It's like, hey, man, your transmission's acting kind of goofy. So we talked about that for a little while, and like I'm logging transmission slip and converter slip, and the transmission slip parameter didn't really match up directly with anything that I saw in the RPM. So I didn't think it was converter slip or transmission slip, but now I'm starting to wonder, based on all of the issues, how long I've been having problems with it. So I'm looking at two scans here, and this is from last year, and I have 6,800 RPM is when it shifts. And keep in mind this blue line down here for the gear change. So basically, as soon as I get into the gear change, the RPM drops. So you have a nice 35, 40 degree angle here coming up at a decent rate, and then you get to the shift point on the scan here, and then boom, RPM drops, and then it comes back up nicely. So same thing here. I did pedal it a little bit in the scan, so this isn't a great one, but the RPM comes right back down, and then it just RPM comes up at a nice angle straight. So what Brooks pointed out to me, DIY Garage TX, pointed out to me, which I didn't really think much of it, because this little hump here in my scan lines up perfectly with when the converter is coupling. So my thought was that it's the converter coupling after the gear change. That's why you're seeing this RPM. But now backtracking and verifying from a previous year, you see the converter coming up, it couples, and the RPM comes back down, but you don't see that in the RPM here. So now I'm really convinced that that was actually transmission slip that I'm seeing in RPM. So here we see at a launch, RPM comes up, and then it flatlines. It matches this same angle, like this nice angle that it should be seeing. And then it's almost like there's a little flare here, like this little hump. This is in first gear. So we got this little angle, then it like comes up like a little hump, then you got a little angle, and then look at this, right at the gear change, this RPM comes up like another 300, and then it drops. So I'm thinking that now this is slip, and then it's a flare on the gear change, and then a drop. Now we see slip, it couples, now it wants to start to shift, and you can see right at the shift point again how the RPM is accelerating now, right there, and then right at the gear change. So it's almost like it slips, couples, slips like it wants to flare, because look at the RPM is like where I was trying to target or where I want to shift at. In some of the previous scans, which is really interesting, I could go through scans for 3 hours with you guys, but some of my other scans, the truck was actually shifting earlier in the year. Last year, the truck was actually shifting at 6,500. And then later in the year, it starts shifting higher, almost with the same file. So I think this is a flare, and then a couple, and then a slip, and then it's flaring. So the converter did help me. I can tell by the mile an hour. So if I look at like 6,200 RPM on this scan in third gear, I'm at 118 miles an hour. I think the speedo's a little off, but here we can go about 6,200 RPM in third gear. I'm at 99. So it's quite a bit faster, and that's because of this converter slip. You see 1,800 last year, and now it's at 11 at the same point in the same gear this year. So it's significantly better, but I think I'm losing a lot with this transmission. So I picked up a lot with the converter, but I think I'm losing a lot with the transmission. And keep in mind, guys, that I did the four-wheel drive conversion on the transmission. So there's a good chance that something happened there, because I did reuse the valve body. I reused the HT2 kit. I pulled the guts, transferred everything over. So this is the third time that this set of internals has been out of the transmission and then back in the transmission with the same HT2 kit, valve body gasket, the separator plate. Everything is the same, and it's been moved around a lot. So there's a chance that something was stuck, slipping. There's a good chance that there was low fluid pressure for a while, and I just kind of transferred the issues over to the other one. I'm still looking at this point for scans that I have after I did the torque, or after I did the four-wheel drive change, but before I changed the torque converter. I'm still trying to find those. I should have them somewhere, because that would really tell me, but I didn't do any passes like at the track in that situation. So I did do a couple of pulls on the lake though when I was scanning, so I'd like to kind of see what was happening there. I just got to find the scans. So yeah, I think this is basically the first 5:17:19. Third pass on the first track day this year. It was 11:1 to 1:22, and it's doing all this kind of weird stuff, and this was basically what I saw all year. I didn't really think a whole lot of it, but now that I'm going back and comparing the scans, I think it's just been slipping a lot, and then finally gave up, because on the last track day, 6:21, I think it was 6:21. First pass was a 10-3 spinning, and then second pass was limiter throwaway. So let's look at the first pass. So you see it kind of like follows almost the same goofy pattern. Comes up and it's acting weird, and then it slips a lot. And you can see this hump, look at the hump, is actually bigger here. And then now it swoops up again, slams down, but look how much later it is after the shift. And I'm kind of just seeing this now for the first time. So there's your shift point, and then it's happening so much later. It's happening about 300 RPM later, and then it just comes up in flatlines. So I think it's just been slipping, because the next pass, it just took a dump. It just didn't want to do it anymore. So I think it finally just gave up. And a lot of this is just for my own reassurance, because I really need to analyze stuff and try to figure out what the root cause was, and try to understand what happened so it doesn't happen again. But this first one looked like garbage, and then it kind of shifted, and then just went like right to rev limiter. and this is in second gear. So then here it shifted. So it tried to shift into third, hits third, and then slams limiter right away, 7,500. So I know you guys saw the scan already, but just kind of showing you back to back what happened compared to, first pass of this year and last pass of last year to what now. So to what happened now. So it seems like it just kind of been deteriorating the whole time, but it stayed really consistent with the numbers. So I guess I didn't really think about it very much, but I guess if I'm turning up the boost and I'm adding timing and I'm doing all this stuff and trying to make it go faster and it's just staying in the same spot, it's probably because maybe the transmission was slipping more and more and more and more every time that I turned it up or tried to make an improvement or try to make it go faster, and it just didn't like it. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I wanted to show you one other thing. These are the two scans. These are the two files from the scans that I just showed you. So the last day, this one is the last day of last year, and this one is the first day of this year. So you see the shift points are almost identical. 53.85, 42.45, 53.87, 42.46. So they're pretty much identical, but the scans looked, way different, even though the shift points are the same. So, yeah, and I even did go back to shift points very similar to this, and it just wasn't happy. Didn't take it. So that's all I has to say.